Hello, this is Dave Hurwitz, Executive Editor at ClassicsToday.com, here to talk about Copland's immortal, perennially fresh, delightful Appalachian Spring, originally simply called Ballet for Martha. Now, as you may know, this ballet was originally written for 13 players, a chamber orchestra, which later got blown up into a full orchestral version and reduced to a suite. So there are sort of four versions that you might encounter. There is the original chamber version of the whole ballet. There is the chamber version of the suite. There is the full orchestral version of the whole ballet, which is almost never heard, but we'll get to that in a moment. And then there is the suite for a full orchestra, which is the way we normally hear it today. That is what we know as Appalachian Spring. And in that form, it's basically a symphonic poem, right? I mean, that's sort of what it is when you play it that way, because it's not going to be danced, and the suite is in one continuous movement, although it has dances separated by interludes, and that is Appalachian Spring as we know it. So there is no way I can talk about every available recording, because every American orchestra and American conductor has recorded it, probably, some more than once. And, I wish that this music had spread a little bit more internationally, because it's wonderful music and it deserves to be played. And like all great music that seems to be stuck in a sort of local rut, it really has universal appeal. But what can we do? And that's particularly true when it comes to what record labels do, because record labels want American conductors to play American music and Finnish conductors to play Finnish music and British conductors to play British music, whether or not they have any real affinity for it or not. And that's a terrible, terrible situation. It is awful when performers get pigeonholed. I remember vividly when Vladimir Feldsman came to this country, and everyone wanted him to do Russian music, as if there weren't enough Russian pianists running around playing Russian music. But what he really wanted to play, and what he played really well, was Bach. And when he finally got a chance to do Bach, he did it magnificently and made some beautiful, beautiful records. Whereas his Russian music, okay, it sounds all right. He knows it. He's Russian, but, it's just the way these things work, and it's a terrible shame sometimes. It does a lot of artisan injustice. Now, with Appalachian Spring, the first thing we need to do with recordings is reckon with Copland's own recordings, of which there are at least three that I want to talk about. God knows if there are others, and pirates and live things and who knows what, but three stereo recordings. First, there is the Orchestral Suite that he made for Columbia. And this is with, it's with the London Symphony. And is it the London Symphony or is it the Philharmonia? No, it's the London Symphony. Okay, it's the London Symphony Orchestra. Now, Copland was not the greatest conductor of his own music, not by a long shot. And these LSO recordings were neither his best efforts as a conductor, nor were they particularly well recorded sonically. So forget the LSO Copland Appalachian Spring. However, there is an earlier RCA Living stereo recording with the Boston Symphony, which is fabulous. Why? Because the Boston Symphony knew the music. They played it for Koussevitzky. They played it originally in the 40s. When Copland came to do this, I'm sure there were a few of them still around. They know the idiom. They know what to do. They know how it should sound. So no matter how bad a conductor Copland was, he couldn't get the orchestra to play at his low level of interpretive ability. And that, I think, is all you need to say about it. It is a great Appalachian Spring, and it comes with the Tender Land Suite and also some terrific Morton Gould stuff, Fall River Legend, and a couple movements from the Latin American Sinfoniette. What could be bad, right? And it's living stereo sound. Great. However, Copland also recorded the original chamber version with the Columbia Chamber Ensemble, in other words, a pickup group, and that he did very well. Why? Probably because it was essentially a chamber ensemble, and again, crack players who knew the music and knew how to handle it, and he was able to give them instructions. This originally came with a rehearsal disc that shows him saying, stop being so sentimental, play it with a little more leanness. It sounds too much like Massenet. He's trying to convey his Stravinskian neoclassical bona fides. And this chamber version is quite wonderful. And that's what you need to know about Copland's own versions if you're interested in them. Get the Boston one for the Orchestral Suite, get the chamber version with the Columbia Chamber Ensemble, and you are in business for Appalachian Spring. And for many of you, that may well be enough. However, there are about 30 billion other recordings of it in various forms. And I do want to mention what I regard as the best of them. It's about, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 or 8 recordings. First, I want to talk about a historical recording that some of you may not know about, but it may pique your curiosity as it piqued mine. The Celibidache Berlin Appalachian Spring. Yes, I'm not kidding. It really exists. It's a little slow, but not ridiculously slow. This is the orchestral version of the suite. He recorded it in 1950. And this happens to be, if you don't have this, the Celibidache in Berlin from 1945 to 57. This is, the post-war Berlin Philharmonic, when it was his job to denazify all those suckers. And boy, did he. In addition to Appalachian Spring, he did Barber's Capricorn Concerto, Piston's Second Symphony, Carlos Chavez's Sinfonia de Antigona. That was his first symphony. And let's see what else. There was some other weird. David Diamond's Rounds for String Orchestra. And lots of, Britten's Sinfonia de Requiem and Mio's Suite Française. Just, Shostakovich 9, Stravinsky's Jeu de Cartes. A whole slew of international classics that the Berlin Philharmonic never played again, I'm sure, or very infrequently played again. Now, are these great recordings? No, who are we kidding? I mean, first of all, the immediate post-war Berlin Philharmonic was nothing special as an orchestra. Let's be honest, right? Let's be honest. You heard it here. You know it's true. That's number one. And second of all, this was all music they were unfamiliar with. It was all music that was uncongenial to them, and probably to Celibidache too. But they did it! And it's on Audita in this wonderful box. So if you get a chance and you're curious, this is, it may cost a bit, and it's not something for anything other than hardcore historical recordings fans. But there's something to be said for it, and it's nice to know that Celibidache made the effort and effectively denazified the whole crowd with these concerts. Now let's talk about new recordings. I'm really going to focus on newer recordings for the most part because they just keep coming if you're a conductor of an American orchestra, and there's very little point in going, back through the sands of time to find that special Appalachian Spring. It doesn't exist. There are a million great ones. So, first, Hugh Wolf. Hugh Wolf, who was my Glee Club conductor when I was in college, and then became a famous actual real conductor. And this is absolutely terrific. This is with the St. Paul Chamber Orchestra. It's got music for the theater, the 3 Latin American sketches, Quiet City, and Appalachian Spring, the original version for 13 instruments. But it's not the original version because it's the original version in, I believe, the suite form. Let me see. Is it the whole thing? Wait a minute. It may be the whole thing. Yeah, I think it's the whole thing. Look at that. The whole ballet. So that's nice. It's nice to have. You get the whole ballet in its 13 instrument form. Next, Orpheus Chamber Orchestra. This is also sort of more or less the chamber version, but it's the suite. It takes 23 minutes. That's how you know. There's about a 12-minute difference between the two. Excellent performances. You also get the 3 Latin American sketches and Quiet City, but what this is really, really wonderful for is an absolutely smoking version of the short symphony, Symphony number 2, which never gets played because it's so hideously difficult and rhythmically tricky, really tricky, that people don't want to do it. It basically has to be played by a chamber ensemble, and it has to be played with insane supernatural clarity and precision, and here you get it. So that's wonderful and worth hearing as a Copland disc, including Appalachian Spring. Then, of course, there's Bernstein. You have to include Bernstein, right? He was Copland's good buddy. They were dear friends. He was renowned as the greatest Copland interpreter in Copland's own lifetime, and probably for a long time after. I don't think these recordings are as great as they were when there was virtually no competition out there, because it's all relative, yes, but these are still great. And so, you can't go wrong with Bernstein. But turning to some newer ones, which I think are well worth considering. First of all, if you want the orchestral version, I have to reach down here to get this, of the complete ballet for full orchestra, which is very, very rare. I think this may be the only recording of it. Maybe someone out there can tell me about another one, but I think this is it. Leonard Slatkin and the Detroit Symphony on Naxos. And it's so unusual, I keep it on my iPhone. Here it is, folks. It's iPhone worthy. It's absolutely a sweet, generous disc. And it also comes coupled with the early ballet, Hear Ye, which no one ever hears. So this is a Copland disc. Again, it's Slatkin in Detroit. Slatkin does great Copland. He's recorded lots of it over the course of his career. And you really, if you're a fan of the work, you won't hear a version like this anywhere else. So Slatkin in Detroit, the complete Appalachian Spring. It's quite a revelation to hear that extra 12 minutes of music. I actually like a lot of it. I really do. I think it balances out the piece better, but that's me. You may disagree. Now, 3 versions of the suite that I think we can wrap this show up. First, AGOA with Minnesota on reference recordings. This comes with a very, very good Third Symphony and a very, very good Fanfare for the Common Man, recorded with reference recordings, vintage, absolutely thunderous, nuclear bomb bass reception, fantastic sonics. It's a very fine Appalachian Spring, lean, fresh, delightful, well-sprung. The piece is all about rhythm, and it's all about a certain innocent simplicity, especially when you get to, the Shaker tune, Simple Gifts. The whole point, Copland was right, is not to play it like Massenet. You have to keep everything extremely simple and tasteful, almost austere, in order to capture that sort of plain spun hominess of the music, and he does it very, very well. It's an excellent recording. Also superb, Michael Tilson Thomas with San Francisco. This was an RCA, not the Symphony's own label. This was back when, the major labels were still recording major orchestras. This is subtitled Copland the Populist. Remember, there was like Copland the Radical or the something, and there was a Copland there were 3 of them, I think, 2 or 3. And this has, of course, Billy the Kid and Rodeo and the Appalachian Spring Suite, magnificently played and recorded by the San Francisco Symphony on RCA. Definitely worth having if you can find it. Finally, I have to talk about my favorite version. And this one may come as a surprise. It's kind of surprised me over the years because I keep returning to it. And it has a special quality that for me is, I don't know. I don't think it's ever been equaled. Antal Dorati, again with the Detroit Symphony, which was Slatkin's orchestra. But, Dorati was, of course, a great ballet conductor, first of all. Second of all, this has a lot of great stuff on it. It's got El Salon Mexico, the Dance Symphony, so Fanfare for the Common Man, because the tam-tam isn't what it ought to be, and the 4 dance episodes from Rodeo, and then Appalachian Spring. So it's a very, very well-filled disc, 75 minutes. And I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I just hear in this a beautiful simplicity and complete naturalness that no other version quite captures for me. And this is a very, very personal point of view. I'm sure you'll agree. Also, and this is what also matters, Dorati was one of those conductors, maybe because of his long association with Mercury Living Presence, who really cared about what his records sounded like. I don't think he ever made a bad sounding recording, whether you liked the performance or not. He really, really gave a damn. And that's such a rare thing, these days. Some of these conductors, they don't pay any attention once they do the performance. But Dorati did. And this is an early Decca digital. And you remember how bad some of those things sounded. But this sounds gorgeous. it has a certain luminosity of texture, and that to me is, it just, I don't hear it in any other version. Maybe Copland's with the Boston Symphony. It has a similar kind of glow behind it, something that just lights up the music and makes it feel as though it's really tactile. It's really in front of you. You know what I mean? It's a beautiful, beautiful performance. So for my money, if you want to hear the Orchestral Suite, Appalachian Spring, I go for Dorati in Detroit. It's the one I reach for. Anyway, let me know what your favorite versions are. I know you have them. So with that, I just want to thank you for listening. Keep on listening to all of these recordings of Copland and the other composers we're talking about. There's so much great music out there. And if you enjoyed this little chat, please feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and let's keep the chats coming. Take care, everybody.